Up next on today's episode of the Sonic Alchemy Podcast.
No Code was meant to be a record that might turn off the casual fan that wasn't really into them for the long haul. And this was a record that came out that was very much like, we're here for the long haul and we're going to do different stuff. So if you're down for that, get ready.
I had so much fun listening to that record today. Because I listened to it today.
Yeah.
Pearl Jam was yesterday, and I listened to Ramones today. So honestly, I felt myself wishing that I was like at a barbecue blasting it over speakers with a bunch of friends.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the kind of vibe that it gave me, was just that
Absolutely.
It was such feel-good music. What's up? Welcome to the show, everyone.
Happy
How we
Friday,
doing?
rock and rollers.
Happy Friday. Absolutely. Excited to be bringing you guys another episode, and this one is a little bit different. Kev had an interesting idea, and so we're going to test it out. This is our first time doing it.
This will be fun.
Yeah, we gave each other some homework assignments to listen to, and we're going to discuss here on the podcast. So basically, he gave me a record that I've never listened to.
Probably because you didn't want to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we'll get into that more.
Yeah.
And then I gave him a record that he's never listened to, at least in its entirety. Maybe he's heard a song or two.
Yeah.
And then we both listened to a classic record that neither of us had really listened to. So we'll be able to dive into that. So we should come up with a flashy name for this kind of episode, because I'm sure we'll do more.
Yeah.
But this is like our musical education episode. It's Music Appreciation 101, something like that.
Yeah. I found this to be really interesting. I know we talked about doing this for a long time, and I think given that both of us love music and we've been sort of on this quest to kind of go back and find music, old or new, that is appealing to us, and we're sort of in that space of like collecting and listening to different things to maybe inform or help us think about new ideas or to spawn stuff. And I thought, what a fun idea. We both own a book. I can't remember. I don't know if I bought that book for you or not. I think I did.
Yeah,
but,
you did. Yeah.
So
That was
we
a
both own
Christmas
a
gift, I think.
That's right. We both
I
own this
remember-
book. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I remember it being wrapped in a glittery bow, and I brought it home very late from the studio. And so, of course, I'm covered in glitter coming home in the middle of the night to who is now my wife, trying to explain to her why I have glitter all over me. And I swear I was only at the studio.
Yeah. I don't know why I smell like watermelon and glitter.
I smell like Victoria's Secret perfume.
Yeah. And there's glitter
Unrelated.
all over me. I don't know why. But I got this big stack of ones that I'm not doing anything with, honey.
Yeah.
Here it goes. Here's for you.
I was
Anywho.
definitely at the studio, but it looked a little
Yes.
suspicious coming home.
I'm sure. Anyway, 1,001 albums to listen to before you die. And obviously that 1,001 records in there, I agree with many of them. I think are really smart, but I'm sure there are also a few in there that I personally think are really worth listening to. And it just made me think about, how fun would this be? We've often harassed each other about artists that you might like that I just don't care for, or vice versa. And of course, our friend, a mutual friend, Michael, we always gave him crap about Nickelback. And, as I've gotten older, I've become a bit more soft, I think, and have not been as snobby, maybe is the best word, about music. I used to have a lot of opinions. So maybe this is where I try and dig back into my unfiltered sensibility and just say what I feel. And it's going to likely piss off some folks, either one of us, I'm sure. But if we continue to do these, the idea is perhaps even for the record that neither one of us had heard, it's one that, again, I think we pick a record that is widely revered as a statement album for a band or something like that. And we
Yeah.
go into it and go, is this something that appeals to me or you? Do you understand why it has the cultural relevance that it has? Um, but then for the artists that maybe you like that you're sending to me or vice versa, that's more about just, did you get it? And
Yeah.
did it make any sense to you? So to kick this off,
Well, hold on. So you
oh,
said something that I think is important. So two things should be equally true in this process. One is that we should go in with a totally open mind to listen to whatever it is we're listening to and do our best to try to understand it.
I
The
failed that
second
experiment.
thing, well, that's all right.
No, I'm kidding.
That
I'm kidding.
aspirationally. The
Yeah.
second thing that should be true is that we should be completely like pull no punches, be totally honest about how we actually felt about it. And I think if we do those two things, this will be a really good conversation in my opinion.
I do too. So let's unveil. So the albums for this week, Justin shared Robben Ford, blues artist, incredible guitar player and jazz, blues, rock guitar player. Been around
Fusion
for,
kind of player.
yeah, been around for a long time. Very prolific, still doing work today.
Robben played
everybody.
for Joni Mitchell.
Yeah. He had Kiss on there as a credit, by the way. We were just talking about.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. I was looking
that
on his Wikipedia. He has Kiss on there as a credit. I don't know what he played on. I didn't go that deep. But I imagine he is probably a little bit like was it Michael Landau and some of these.
Yeah. In that world, sort of, for sure.
And the Toto guitar player. Why did I just blank?
Larry Carlton is who he gets probably associated with the most based on their styles. That sort of like jazz influenced blues and rock playing.
Steve Lukather, that's who I was thinking of earlier.
From Toto,
brain fart, yeah. So I find it kind of falling into that space. And then, of course, because if you've listened to this podcast, you know that Justin has not really ever really cared for Pearl Jam. There's a long-standing history that I'm sure he'll get into about why. But I decided to pick a record that wasn't their first three. And I went for a record that I thought it's an interesting change for them. So I selected No Code, which was their fourth record that they put out. I believe it was 1996.
Yeah, 96.
Yeah, and so those are the two records that we listened to, and then our other record was the Ramones record, and it's what was it called? What is it? It's called
something to Russia.
Yeah.
Let's see. I have it in my
Dang it.
list here. We should have come prepared, but that's all right.
That's all right. We'll have the graphic up with the album.
Rocket to Russia.
Rocket to Russia. There it is. Yes. Widely considered, even according to the band, their best record.
And that's 1977.
Yeah.
So that's the oldest record we listened to.
We're going to take those down and hopefully have a fun little debate and dialogue and discussion about all of those. But I will pass it over to Justin to kick us off because I am very eager to hear his thoughts on No Code.
Oh, so you want to start with Pearl Jam? Okay.
Yeah, why not? Let's get it out of the way.
All right. Yeah. Well, we might as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not even sure where to start because there's a lot of different takes that I have on it. I assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know the catalog very well. I obviously know some of their hits. It's impossible to get away from. Yep. As you mentioned, I'm not a big fan, although I do like some of the things that Eddie Vedder has done solo, which is odd to me. But this record seemed perhaps more experimental than what I expected to hear from them. There was a lot of really unique sounds on No Code. So much so that I was kind of taken back by it. Some of the stuff is really out there. I mean, the first track on the record is like, what am I listening to?
Sometimes, yeah.
And So the things that jumped out to me right away was that, I mean, really experimental record, a lot of different sounds, a lot of lyrics that just did not make a lot of sense to me. I don't know if Eddie Vedder is the kind of guy who writes lyrics that are deeply meaningful and poetic, or if he's the kind of writer who writes sort of like stream of consciousness from the void type lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who does nonsense lyrics like, Noel Gallagher or something like that, where it's just about finding good rhymes.
Right.
And I don't mean that as a pejorative. I mean, because there are lots of different lyrical styles out there, and people take a lot of meaning away from Oasis, but they'll be the first to tell you that, it's just writing rhymes. So I didn't really know what to make of that. Some of the songs make more sense than others, but there didn't seem to be like a cohesive theme in the record necessarily, or at least not one that I could catch on a first listen through without context of what I was taking in. I only made it through once, but we also did this in like a day and a half turnaround. So if we had a little more time, I probably would have listened to it again. I thought, man... stop me at any point, because I'm going to go a lot of different directions here.
Go for it. Yeah.
The other thing that I noticed is the production of it is awesome. Like things sounded so much more real in the 90s. And I find that with pretty much any 90s record that I listen to across genres too, but especially like in that rock and grunge world that was so prevalent at that time. There are lots of like just textural things in the way that it sounds. I listened to that one in headphones, and I listened to the Ramones record through my hi-fi system in my living room, which makes a little bit of a difference. But but man, it sounds so good to me. And I didn't look up who produced it.
Brendan.
It was Brendan O'Brien.
Yeah.
Okay. That doesn't surprise me, actually. That's probably what I would have guessed.
I'm going to fact check myself, but I'm pretty sure that was.
Yeah, look that up, and we'll make sure to give credit where it's due.
Yeah.
Records don't really sound like that anymore. And I was thinking about some of the other stuff I like that came out around that time. Like Down on the Upside, I also think was 96, wasn't it? And Down on the Upside is also a pretty... I don't know if I would call it an experimental record for Soundgarden. I don't know if that's exactly fair, but it was definitely exploring some different space than what you get in the records preceding it. Like Super Unknown is a much darker, by contrast, record than Down on the Upside to me.
Yeah.
And so that was one thing, is it just seemed like that mid to late 90s, things started really expanding in what you were able to put on a rock record. And it also reminded me of a time where the acoustic guitar had a place in rock music. It's another thing you don't hear that much anymore. You might hear something that's more of a ballad with an acoustic.
Yeah.
But actual rock songs being acoustic driven, that was very common in the 90s and into the early and mid aughts that you don't really hear anymore. At least not in that way. And there were quite a few songs like that. I thought that was really cool. The bass playing was the standout to me. Musically, I thought the bass playing right off the bat in that opening track, that's so weird. It sounds like a fretless bass or something, maybe.
He plays a lot of that.
And I don't know much about the band other than I know Matt Cameron, I assume, was on that record. Was he in the band at that point?
No, I don't think he came in until
he
Yield.
Comes in later.
I think this is Abernethy or Dave Aber. I'm going to butcher his last name. I'm so sorry. But their first drummer, who had been with them on the first 3 albums, Dave Abernethy. Forgive me.
Well, that confirms
I'm so
it
sorry.
then. I know nothing about the musicians in Pearl Jam. If Matt Cameron's not there, I don't know anything about any of them.
Yeah.
But the bass playing was really good. across the whole record. The other thing that I noticed is, and again, I don't really mean this in a negative way, but it's just things that from listening to quite a bit of modern music lately, it really caught my ear is that there was very clearly no auto tune or vocal tuning of any kind on it. And it almost on some of the songs feel like even for the time, they're a little bit loosey-goosey with pitch, which makes me feel that they were going for a vibe and a more raw thing than perhaps what they could have done with maybe some more takes. I don't want to assume on their part, but it makes me feel that way because there are other records from the 90s that sound more polished in that respect.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that Eddie Vedder's not a good singer or that he's pitchy, even though he's not exactly my cup of tea most of the time.
Right.
It was just very evident how it felt kind of like listening to a band in a really great rehearsal space almost, where it wasn't trying to be perfect in a way that music nowadays is trying to be. And I don't exactly have an opinion on that either, because I felt like I enjoyed that, but I also didn't. I'm so used to hearing things in tune that when I would hear it, my ear immediately would kind of bend and I would get distracted by the fact that it wasn't quite right. And so that was another interesting thing.
Okay.
Now, on the whole, I would say this record did not make me a Pearl Jam fan.
Okay. That's okay.
So if you were hoping that it was, it didn't. I found myself very, what's the word that I'm looking for? Maybe I'm a little bit, I'm blanking on the word. That's what happens when we do a podcast after a gym session. Predictable, I guess, a little bit predictable in the fact that I really found myself drawn more toward, there's like 2 or 3 songs on the record that are a little more like upbeat, true hard rock songs. They're, a little more rowdy sounding. And I found myself drawn to those much more than some of the moodier tracks that were like In My Tree, I think is what one of them's called. I was like, okay, all right, interesting song. And then there kept being kind of more and more songs sort of like that. Let's see. Hail Hail was solid.
That's a heavy song. I love the guitar tones on that, by the way. That it's like doubled up on the rhythm, and they feel slightly, almost a little out of tune to give it that sort of big, like Les Paul kind of. That's what it feels like to me. It's like it's a real punchy tone in the guitars on that I really enjoyed. And
Habit was probably my favorite. And that's probably the most kind of rowdy, rough around. Like the guitar tone on that song is really cool. Lucan also up there.
Lucan is heavy,
as one of my favorites on there. Off He Goes was good, I thought.
That's probably the best song to me on the record. I mean, just the most introspective, Vedder type song you would suspect. It was really good. It's a great story to me about for me, it always evokes this idea of a friend who you've not seen in a long time, who's there, and you're seeing more in his eyes than what he's actually saying. And you can feel that there's a life that's been had, whether good or bad, behind those eyes. And there's always this sort of feeling in those conversations where, okay, I need to go, I need to go and go back out and face the world for a little bit. And you sense from the person, the writer, which is Eddie, that he yearns for a better time or a simpler time maybe for his friend. And so I always relate to that. That's a tough song for me to hear. I don't know why, but that's one that's always struck me as like and I went back and listened to the record when I gave it to you, and there was intention to pick this record, and I'll kind of maybe I'll open up a little bit about sharing a thought on it.
Yeah.
So their fourth album, they've done, of course, 10, very much like Nevermind, blew up, and an overnight sort of success on that record. Maybe not as stratospheric as Nirvana, but pretty darn close. They go immediately in because, of course, they're riding on the road. They're touring a lot. They go right in and they do verses, which has a lot of, again, you figure 3 or 4 years of just commercial hit after another. And I think for most bands, they probably could have rode off, and they probably still would be playing tracks off those first 2 albums. Then Kurt dies, and they release Vitology, and that record is largely felt to be a record that Eddie just kind of locked himself up and wrote songs about fame and fortune and the devastation of losing a person that he felt that he was somewhat connected to in a strange way. Just kind of understanding where that all of that was going, and where
Yeah.
it leads is basically a very dark place if you're not careful. And that record is a dark record for sure. So you go into No Code, and they're like, I think the whole band was kind of like, we just need to let loose. And the vibe of the record is 100% correct. It's very much raw, not polished whatsoever, not in the way that you would hear now. It's very Neil Young inspired. And the reason I
Yeah.
say that is because they go out on tour with Neil, I believe, during this time. They also do a record called Mirror Ball around this time with Neil, kind of like his
Hmm.
backing band, if you will. But it was kind of
Oh, interesting.
a combo project. All of the band, from my understanding, all love Neil Young. And this record to me felt like, in ways, them really approaching that territory, and rather the ethos of Neil Young to be like, I'm doing what I want to do, and if people enjoy it, great. But this feels good to us for what we're doing. I think they intentionally, No Code was meant to be a record that might turn off the casual fan that wasn't
Mm.
really into them for the long haul. And this was a record that came out that was very much like, we're here for the long haul and we're going to do different stuff. So if you're down for that, get ready. There's definitely going to be things that feel similar to what you might have heard, but we want to do something that's at least feels like we have a roadmap for what our future is going to be like. And I think if I remember this too, a lot of the band, and they're probably just feeling that, I think touring, the fatigue of being in a band that's so successful, and the business aspects of it, that they were struggling a little bit to find their footing, I think, in this space. But
Mm.
um yeah, there's
It's an
really good tracks.
interesting, like, entry
I don't love every song
point.
on this record, by the way. Just for clarity. There's a
Yeah.
few songs on here that I would not go back and listen to all the time. But there's some powerful songs on here that really do resonate with me from their catalog, more than I think a Pearl Jam fan might give them credit for.
Yeah.
There's some really great songs on here to me. And the ones that you mentioned are likely in the same list for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, so clearly it's a really interesting record from the standpoint of the context of where the band was in their career.
Mm-hmm.
But it also seems a bit of an odd choice to try to onboard someone who is famously not a Pearl Jam fan in on that record. So what was your thought process there? I was expecting, if you were going to send me Pearl Jam, it would have been probably Vitology or something like that.
Yeah, and I think that could, and honestly,
or maybe even something new, you know?
yeah. Well, yeah, to go there would be, I've gone through my phases where I do feel, obviously, like anybody who's followed them for a long time, there are records that you love more than others. And
Yeah.
10 was obviously an iconic record for them. It got played a lot. You still hear Even Flow and Jeremy and Alive and
Yeah.
Ocean and a lot of the songs that were on Deep. And they're all great. Don't get me wrong. They're super good. But I felt like that was sort of like the Foo Fighters' first record. It's like, okay, this is a start, but it's not going to be the best album to me in their catalog, even though it could have a lot of hits on it and all that stuff. Records that went on later in both of their careers to me got better. I think Versus is a fantastic record. I love a lot of songs on there. Rearview Mirror is probably one of my favorite Pearl Jam songs. Um, there's also great songs on Vitology like Corduroy and Whipping and Satan's Bed and some very dark, deep lyrics in that one for sure. But yeah, I did purposely pick No Code because I really wanted to see, like, you could obviously go back and like you said, some of their hits because you can't, it's unavoidable. If you're listening to rock radio, you're going to hear
they're just part of the culture. There's no getting
Daughter
away.
or
Even Flow
Better
is never
Man
going
or
anywhere.
Even Flow. Right. You're going to hear those
Yeah.
forever. So I could take you into those records, and I'm sure that would be a great starting and jumping off point. And maybe you find yourself to be, okay, yeah, I get it. But I also know you to be a person that likes when a band can make a left turn. Like that Avenged record, their last Avenged record was so bizarre to me. And I was just starting to get to a point where I was like, I kind of understand a little bit about where they are and maybe their aesthetic. And that record really threw me for a loop. I'm like, I don't get it. I don't like it. There's really nothing on that record that appealed to me whatsoever. And it made me go back and crave like their earlier stuff when I'm like, even their weird stuff in their earlier stuff made more sense to me than that. Yeah. So I think for you, I was like,
for those
trying
listening,
to go and say, hey,
he's talking about Life is But a Dream.
Yeah.
And
which
I will just
honestly think is probably one of their worst records, but that's just my personal opinion. And I don't
there's
care
a lot
if
of
you
people
disagree.
who feel that way. No, there's a lot of people who feel that way. I do disagree. It is not my favorite record of theirs, but I actually really love it. And there's a couple of songs on there that are unbelievably great songs, I think. So
It's
but
not
it's
to
a wild
challenge
ride.
their technical proficiency, but it's like
I don't
it
think anyone
almost
would.
felt pretentious in the way that they were trying to give it out to their audience in this space of like, we're gonna force you to listen to this really bizarre record, and it's like anyway, I don't have to get on the tangent.
Yeah.
Let's stick to these albums. So yeah, I wanted to pick No Code because I thought this is an interesting inflection point in Pearl Jam's career. They did alienate fans here, and very similar to what we talked about before with Kid A for Radiohead, and with other bands, even like Avenged, where we just talked about. They intentionally put records out that sometimes will lose a good chunk of their audience, which you yourself had said.
In
That
Utero
being said,
is a good example.
In Utero
from
is
that
definitely
period.
one that probably, and honestly, by design, they just said, no, we just don't want to be massive. And I think Pearl Jam was feeling that space. They're like, we are happy playing theaters, and we're okay with that. And of course, they continue to grow, and their live shows became the reason that really, like Dave Matthews Band and all that, you can appreciate their studio works, but going and seeing them live is a different thing. John Mayer's another one. Like, I like Continuum and those records. I think they're really good. But seeing him live is a different thing. So I do think a lot of those songs probably had the same
he's another
impact.
one too that, sorry to cut you off.
No,
but
it's okay.
He's another one that sort of on the heels of, like, he was massively successful from his first record, but Continuum made him like a household name, right?
Yeah.
And then he sort of really turns away from it. It worked out for him because he continued to become more and more successful.
Right.
But he really turned away from that whole thing and has been pretty deliberate to never do another Continuum record, even though I would say The Search for Everything is probably the next closest thing. But that comes like 4 records later. He does Born and Raised, which is like a pretty big left turn from Continuum. And so I think that's probably natural for an artist. You get to a point where you appreciate the success to some degree, but you also don't want to be pigeonholed, and you want to maintain your artistic integrity. And sometimes that means like planting your foot in the ground and doing a hard pivot and saying, I'm going over here, and whoever wants to follow me, awesome.
That's
and
why
if you don't, that's fine.
Black Crowes first 2 records, you could just cash out after that and just play the rest of those 2 records for the rest of your time and Shake Your Moneymaker and Southern Harmony. You're going to be fine, right?
Yeah.
And they go,
absolutely.
What? We're going to do a weird ass record, and we're going to put out Amorica, and we're going to have a strange album cover that looks like the front of a Hustler magazine. And
and that is a weird record.
And it's a super weird record to take in. And then they're like, oh, well, we kind of don't want to lose the steam that we got. And we know we're a bit of a nostalgia type act. So we don't want to pull too far back. So then they do, I think, By Your Side, I think was, or maybe Three Snakes and a Charm, somewhere in that area. They're trying to get a little bit back to form, because they're like, some bands try it and they go, oh, maybe we pushed a little too far, and they'll kind of revert back a little. I don't feel like Pearl Jam really did that. I think maybe later they have again. But at that time of No Code, they definitely wanted to make a statement that it's like, we're in it for the long haul, if you guys are, but we're going to do weird stuff. You can certainly feel there's a punk aesthetic in there that lives in all of them. And you get that in those tracks like Hail Hail and Lucan. Present Tense is a really great song that's a slow burn, that I also really enjoyed on that record, I think. So the ones that stand out are probably the ones that I think would stand out for a lot of people. But of course, I'd love to hear if other people have, deeper cuts on that record that they find to be really great. But yeah, I appreciate the honesty about it. It is a record that's maybe hard to swallow for even the deepest of Pearl Jam fans, but I think people have come back to the record and appreciated it later for what they were trying to do. So that's really why I selected it.
Secretly, I was hoping it was going to turn me into a fan, because I love to hate on them, because I think it's funny, because I know how much you love them.
Yeah.
And I also know that you know that about me, that my hatred toward Pearl Jam is not 100% real. It's more like 65-70% real.
Right.
And mostly just because, like, we did grow up in slightly different decades. And so for me, growing up, my childhood is a lot of Eddie Vedder's voice and cheap rip-offs of his kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I remember by the time I'm really getting to choose my own music, I'm going, I don't want things that sound like that. I'm tired of the baritone, peanut butter in the mouth kind of singers, like
Scott Stapp.
Scott Stapp. Well, you know what? Ironically, I really liked Creed for quite a while. I guess that's not a surprise. I mean, at the time that they're coming out, I mean, everyone liked Creed. And that's another band that is funny, because they're getting their sort of like second life here lately. And there's a lot of theories as to why. I grew up, let's see, their first record probably comes out when I'm around like 10. And so, they have Higher on the radio, and then some of the other ones. That was really cool to me. I really got that. Especially the guitar work. Once I'm really paying attention to guitar around 9. I get my first guitar around 10. And then that stems this whole thing where I'm paying attention to that in music. I'm listening for cool parts. and Creed always had that. And then they became like the band that it was cool to hate, and that eventually that turned into Nickelback as people kind of forgot about Creed and they just kind of moved on to Nickelback. But then now it seems like there's an element of nostalgia around Creed, and people are kind of ready to look at that band with a fresh set of eyes, perhaps. And I followed that band into Alter Bridge. I mean, from Alter Bridge's first record, I've been a huge fan. And to me, Miles Kennedy is a huge step up vocally over Scott Stapp. So I'm not exactly like a Stapp apologist, but I do think that they made some really great music. And he was probably the one exception to that vocal sound where I kind of allowed him in, but anyone else who sort of was doing that kind of thing, I just really wasn't for me.
That was my problem, I think, with them, because I say this again, I've long since softened on Creed. I'm okay with their music, but I will tell you how I felt when that first album came out. I was like, this is an A&R reps version of Pearl Jam. They're trying to cash in on that thing, that peanut butter in the mouth, baritone type vocal, a little bit hard rock here and there, a good ballad. And it just felt manufactured to me in a way that didn't feel real. And again, remember at that time, we're getting No Code, we're getting Yield, which were different records for Pearl Jam. So they're trying to evolve away from that same thing so they didn't get sort of stuck or into that category. And it's the same thing that people complained about with Bush and Silverchair and some of these bands. It was like, God, you just sound like the record label's Puddle of Mud. You just sound like the record label's version
Godsmack.
of one of the sort of Mount Rushmore of grunge. You know, everybody. It felt like everyone was chasing one of those bands.
Well, they were.
I mean, you look here. You just go down the list, and here again. Sorry if this offends anybody, but there again, Godsmack. That's an Alice in Chains song.
Yeah.
Does anyone find that surprising that they sound like Alice in Chains, or at least they did?
Yeah.
Chevelle. Give me a break, guys. That is Tool. Was Tool. Definitely sounded like Tool. Okay?
Yeah. And not as good Tool.
Not as good, right? There are bands.
That's kind of a mean thing to say, but I do feel that way.
Again, I only am going from the beginning of that. They have long since evolved and don't sound anything to me like Tool. And Tool has long since evolved and doesn't sound anything like Tool in a way.
Yeah, fair.
But in the time, remember, this is me, 27, 28 years old. And I'm like, what is this garbage? Like, this doesn't sound good. And of course, I gave some passes to other bands that, like Incubus. I shared this before. I think I got on a pass because I felt like it was really interesting music that they were trying to do. Blink 182. I found them to be very fun and interesting, in that sort of punk thing. But a lot of bands that I felt like, and I told you, like that 97 era, I was trying to get away from that stuff and really digging into more electronic, or the Verve, or the sort of Britpop thing that was still going on with Pulp and Blur and Oasis and some of that. So in that era, going into probably from 97 to 2001, there was a lot of bands there that I just didn't care for in that space. And I named off a few of them, but like I said, Oleander, Godsmack, some of those bands, Seven Mary 3, they were very popular, and they were definitely sort of carrying the torch of the grunge sort of movement. But for whatever reason, I just couldn't relate to them at all. Mudvayne, that was another one that I just mentioned. Like, I just didn't get it. Stained, Disturbed, they were all sort of falling into this thing where it was very much like brooding rock, mid-tempo-y, most of it, and it just didn't. It wasn't exciting to me. I was like, I need something else. I was looking at him, craving something else. which is what sort of plummeted me back into, like I said, electronic music and some of the Britpop stuff that was going on. Anyway,
Yeah, it is interesting because now looking back, it's probably a combo of a couple of things. It's like the 90s was pretty famously a time of people really obsessing over authenticity. You know, it's like the 80s brought to a head the sort of glamour uh and you know we've talked about this many times. Is like I think people were looking for something that was just not that, not makeup and teased hair and
right.
everything perfect. And
Yep.
so you know then grunge comes out and it is the opposite of that. You know, it's raw and it's unhinged and it's different. And then by the time it gets really popular, those bands are already trying to do something else, and so they're leaving a space where other bands who are influenced and inspired can step in because those other bands are not doing that thing anymore.
Right.
But then because of the obsession around authenticity, it feels like a ripoff, even though really probably those bands were very passionate about what they were doing because they loved those other bands and they helped sort of create a way for them to do a thing that they wanted to do. But the culture was such that it felt maybe manufactured, or at least was perceived that way.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some of it probably was manufactured. I'm sure there was an element of that, but it's interesting. Looking back on it, you know, I could see how
Yeah.
you would feel that way at the time.
Yeah. And it wasn't, like I said, I have most of those bands that I just rattled off, I've really not ever taken the deep dive to go into them. So if someone wants to share, hey, jerk, maybe you could give this record a listen now
Yeah.
and tell me
Yeah.
if
Hey,
you're
idiot, you don't know what you're talking about.
if you feel that it's different.
Yeah.
I might, I have come around on a lot of other things, but again,
Yeah.
for me at that time, I'm not having it. It was a giant middle finger to all of that stuff. And anyway, so thank you for reviewing No Code. I love it.
Yeah.
A great and honest review, and I appreciate it. And I was not expecting that to make you a Pearl Jam fan at all. I was just saying, hey, this is a record that was very pivotal for them. And I know from a sound quality and how it was produced, I felt like that would be something that you might appreciate, was that it was very much felt very live in a room kind of
Yeah.
approach to it in every way. It was not meant to be polished or around the
Yeah.
edges. Very similar to In Utero in that space, where they just kind of relished in the mistake and you know, and let it kind of be what it was. Um, and I really appreciated bands that were trying to do that, at least at that time. They're like, yeah, we had a big
Yeah.
record. We're going to go in a different direction. Let's talk about Robben Ford.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
So,
curious on this one for you. I
mm,
picked it because one, I think it's a really great record. I guess we'll see what you thought about it. In the world of guitar players, it's pretty renowned and revered. Um, but I feel like a lot of times in guitar music, which he falls into a category that I would think, and this might not be fair to generalize, but most people who listen to Robben Ford are probably musicians. And in the world of artists like that their main draw is musicians, the music tends to be not uh, as palatable as artists that I tend to like. And I feel like on that record, the songs are so strong. Um, and there's a lot of interesting music on there. It doesn't just feel like a guitar wank fest, you know, at least to me. And so, yeah, I'm curious. Like, I don't know if you ever really listen to that kind of music very much. Um,
yeah,
yeah, anyway, I'll let you take over, but, yeah,
there
I'm just
was,
curious to hear your thoughts.
I'll give some context on that. Again, growing up in the panhandle of Florida, we had rock radio stations, and most of the time they're going to play a pretty varied mix of things that now would be probably considered classic rock. But there also was a fair amount, if I'm not mistaken, a very fair amount of blues that was played a lot during that time. And I'm looking at this. This is 1987. This is in the pinnacle or apex of hair bands. You
Mm-hmm.
have Appetite for Destruction dropping this same year. You have Whitesnake's album with Still of the Night and Is This Love and all that.
Yep.
So, but to me, it also reminded me a little bit of like other bands that I was really, I mean, I love Stevie Ray Vaughan. Stevie Ray Vaughan was kind of big around this time as well. Robert
Just
Cray
after
band.
this, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Robert Cray band, also very big. These are blues guys. Dire Straits had already blown up and had two records. I think the Midnight Movies record, and then
Yeah.
of course Brother in Arms, which
Yeah.
were massive but very blues heavy influenced records. So those are records
That's
that I
true. Yeah.
widely revered. And then of course, let's not knock out Eric Clapton throughout all of this, was still being very prolific throughout the 80s in that space. That being said, I felt that this record was really strong. I love the blues playing on it. Of course, he's an incredible guitar player. I think the jazz influence to me is something that I felt very akin to, because I do love when blues players pick a different chord in the chord progression or a different inversion of it to give it a little of a different thing that you wouldn't expect. And I think Robin does that very well. Um, I I'm not a crazy fan of his singing, but that wasn't it was more, it reminds me a bit of Kenny Loggins, and I think Kenny Loggins is a better singer to me.
Yeah.
But he has sort of a
That's
similar
probably
tone
fair.
to he has a
Yeah.
similar tone to me, and so I thought, okay, I'm not necessarily coming here for the vocal, although I felt like the songwriting and everything was really strong. I think one of the strongest ones to me, um, I believe it was maybe the third song. Help the Poor or Ain't Got Nothing But the Blues were really good. Born on a Bad
Yeah.
Sign is a cover, of course,
Yeah.
which he did a great job. But I've heard so many different, everybody's covered that song that's a blues
Yeah.
artist and has done their own great version of it. So
The
the
Gary
bones of
Clark
that
Jr.
song,
version's amazing.
yeah, I feel like didn't Stevie Ray Vaughan do that too? I may be
Probably.
mistaken.
Yeah,
I feel
I'm
like there was
sure.
one in there, but anyway,
Pretty much
Get a
everyone's done it.
Revelation was really good to me as
Mhm.
well. There's just great choices in chords. What was interesting, my friend that I've told you about that I work with, I said, "Hey, we're doing this." I told him about the podcast. I said, "We're doing this. I'm going to take a deep dive in there." He's like nerding out about Robben Ford because he's a huge fan, and his
Mm.
mutual friend, Michael Landau, I believe, yeah, he's played with Robin several
Yeah.
times and has done some projects together with him. So he's like, "Is this your first listen to the record?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know who he is, and I've certainly heard about him in my, hanging out with guitar players for as long as I
Yeah.
have, and that are close friends of mine. I know who he is, but I never really dug in and listened to a whole record." So all in all, to me, it's enjoyable. The thing that bums me out a little is I feel like there's a fair amount of DX7 synth on this to me, or at least it evokes that sort of time and place where
Yeah.
there's some I don't there's maybe 2 sounds on the DX7 that I think are really great, and the rest of it to me was trash. And it
I feel like that's probably a controversial take.
oh, it will 100% be,
Yeah.
100% be.
Yeah. There's
And
probably
I'm
a
sure
lot of
I'm not
DX7 lovers out there.
I'm not gonna get a lot of love from that one. Um I think with
And
some
like the one
finesse.
keyboard part that I added to our last record was DX7, by the way.
Look, it is what it is. I I think again at the time when that came out, it was so heavily used, you saw it everywhere.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so every band that was trying to get sort of these like bell sounds or sort of and it was a very unique synth that came out at the time. Uh
Yeah.
since then of course I feel like it's very dated. If you're looking for that sort of thing, you can certainly get it, but it doesn't transcend in the same way that a Moog or maybe a sequential circuits, something like that would.
Yeah. That's
It was very
fair.
much an FM synthesizer, and it felt very stock. In the same way that you used to tell me Superior Drummer, you felt like all the metal records for a time, every one of them sounded the same because they were all using
Yeah.
Superior Drummer for their samples, and they all had this very similar sound to it. And I feel like that would have been my only critique was, and maybe he didn't. To be honest with you, maybe it wasn't, but I feel pretty certain that it feels like there was keyboards on there that you could have easily gone back and played an actual electric piano or something on there. I felt like it was widely using a synth. If it wasn't, it was produced in such a way that it sounded like it, and that kind of bummed me out because I felt like there was more room for the songs to breathe without it. So
Hmm.
a lot of things featured keyboard stuff in there, and
Yeah.
that was my least favorite thing about the record. That being said, the batch of songs is fantastic. I think they're really great. No doubt he's an incredible guitar player. Like I told you, the inversions and some of the chord choices that he picked would fall outside of blues and more into jazz and fusion. And I do find that stuff interesting in the same way that I've talked about Steve Lukather,
Yeah.
um, and these guys that basically can play anything and make stuff really interesting. Christopher Cross is another one that's like, y-
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, there's some incredibly talented guitar players and session players that were back during this time, and I would put Robin in that space. That I'm sure he's shown up and played on many other people's records and has contributed to the sound of a lot of other artists. As a solo artist, I was not disappointed with the record. I think some of the sound choices for me felt very dated. Um,
It sounds
but
very much
overall,
of the era that it came from. So where
yeah,
some records seem to be timeless sounding, that is, I would agree with you. It's not one of them. It
no,
sounds like it came from the late 80s, early 90s kind of a thing.
yeah,
So the production does sound a bit dated. I would argue that it's a good example of that era, but it does sound like that era for sure.
yeah,
The thing that always stuck out to me was the the rhythm guitar more than anything. Like that second song, Wild About You.
wild
I'm
about,
just
yeah.
wild about you, baby. Do you
Mhm.
ever think of me? Like all that stuff to me is so cool. Whereas I probably would have played all that stuff single note,
Mm,
like because the whole
mhm.
band is all playing that in unison. But
Right.
it's all these like really cool chords voicing that stuff out. And then like Can't Let Her Go, the last song on the record.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. There's something about it that is very addicting to listen to because they're like songs that feel kind of familiar on the surface, but there's so much more going on with the rhythm parts,
Yeah.
both in the chords, but also in the rhythm itself, like the way that they're putting that rhythm section
Mm.
together is, to me, always was a really big standout.
The
And I actually
band is
like his
super.
voice. Yeah,
Yeah, it's not that I
yeah.
don't. I just felt like, oh, he reminded me for whatever reason, tone wise, or maybe the way in which he approached reminded me of Kenny Loggins, and it just made me crave listening to Kenny
Mm.
Loggins in that way. Although
I
I
never
don't
thought
feel
about
like,
that, but that's an interesting point. I get how you
yeah,
would like feel that way.
yeah, and again, uh, we'll dig into a lot of this stuff, but I'm a big Kenny Loggins fan. He is an incredible songwriter, a great singer, um, and really great functional guitar player. He wrote hits, hit after hit after hit.
Yeah.
Um, to punctuate on this one again, thinking about because I think my only probably comparison, I think it's the August album by Eric Clapton. I want to say it's probably out the year, maybe year before this or the same year.
Let's
Kind of
see.
has
I'll
that
look it
same.
up.
It's like sort of a sleek '80s type production. Um, I think the one that I'm trying to, yeah, it's God, what's it? It's in the way you use it. I think is
Yeah.
was the
Is
lead
that
off
from
song on
that?
that That's from that record. Yeah.
I love that song.
And I was trying to think if Alibis was.
86. Yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah.
86. So the year
So
before.
it it feels like um it feels like that, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Phil Collins actually produced that record for Eric Clapton, which is kind of wild. Um,
Oh, if that's
yeah,
true, that actually makes a lot of sense to me.
yeah,
I always loved that era of Clapton.
yeah.
And I
I
don't know
know.
how
That's
the
why I kind of brought it up.
broader, uh, there's something nostalgic about it to me, which
Mm.
probably has something to do with it. I don't know how people who are like, I love Eric Clapton. I'm in no way an aficionado to where I can speak to all his
Me either.
eras
Right.
and all the things. I mean, his body of work is just tremendous.
Yeah.
Um, I kind of feel like probably it's not held in as high of esteem as a lot of his
Mm.
other work and a lot of his other bands.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know why, I always loved that era. Like the songs are cool and the production is, uh, dare I say, cheesy now. But
Yeah.
I think that happens in eras where, you push boundaries in certain eras. And,
Oh
I do
yeah.
think,
Yeah.
like drum production is going to probably feel that way to us in like 20 years time. We are going to look
Yeah.
back at, like, everyone has been, and look, we use VSTs for our
Oh
drums.
yeah.
So I'm
Yep.
not speaking from a place of trying to be judgmental. It, like, drum sample libraries have empowered a lot of people to be able to make really great sounding stuff at home. Because
Yeah.
really, that's been the limiting factor. Is like guitars are pretty easy to do at home, bass, vocals, even drums are a whole different story. You need so much equipment. You need, I mean, even just owning the right drums. So being able to buy a sample library and play it on a electric kit or program it is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we are, and already some of us look at it this way, but I think listeners will go back and go, oh, this stuff all sounds very of an era where all the drums kind of sounded like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I assume that technology is going to get to a point where the realism gets better and there's maybe
Yeah.
more variety in the samples that are out there. Like
Yeah.
I was really excited. I haven't even shown this to you yet. Sorry, this is a weird like side tangent. But Mixwave, I think, is the company, put out an Aaron Sterling sample
yeah.
pack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god, dude, it sounds so
Yeah.
good. I bought
Sounds
it. It was
good.
so
Yeah.
cheap too. It was like I don't even think I paid $50 for it. I paid probably less than that. It's a
Yeah.
contact instrument that you install.
Yeah.
And dude, and it sounds unlike any other library that I've ever heard.
Mhm.
It has a completely different character. Like if I didn't know, if someone didn't tell me it was a sample library, I would totally think it was like just a great recording.
Right.
So I'm
Right.
optimistic about how these things are going, where affordability is going to be more of a thing and there will be
Yeah.
more engineers getting their samples made to where there'll be more variety, because everything has been kind of through this narrow sort of funnel of the way that things tend to sound right now.
Yeah. That for the Eric Clapton, yeah. So August, and I think Journeyman is the next record in 1989. That was the one that I was thinking of that had no alibis on it. It also has that sort of really glossy 80s sort of production I think that a lot of people crave. I'll go to the John Mayer's, what was his last record, yeah?
Sob rock.
Sob Rock, yeah.
Yeah.
Very much of that era. I think
100%. Yeah.
tapping into that space of probably those 3 albums that Clapton did in that era before he
And
goes to the
throwing Brothers
90s.
in Arms.
Brothers in Arms in there
Yeah.
too,
Throw
yeah.
that in there. Yeah. You got
Sure,
Dire
sure.
Straits, 80s Clapton,
Yeah.
and a little bit of Toto, you know. Yeah. You get
Yeah.
that on Last Train Home, I think,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Last Train Home feels like no alibis to me in that Clapton way. I don't know what,
Yeah.
maybe it's just the vibe of the song feels that to me. Anyway, not to pull us on a tangent from away from Robben Ford, but to end that sort of statement about that, I feel like that album feels very much of the era that it was created in. I think the guitar playing
Yeah.
is exceptional. I wasn't super blown away with the vocal, but he serves the song very well. The band's great.
Yeah.
I don't love the keyboard sounds. I wish they were a bit more, um, maybe coming in the 70s space, a little bit more like
Mm,
traditional stuff. I think it could have warmed it
yeah.
up a bit. It feels a little too glossy in my taste, but I respect
Yeah.
that that is of that time. So
It's a little
it's not.
slick and lean sounding, if
Mhm,
that makes sense.
mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
to your point, I think things in the 70s did sound probably a little fatter,
Mm.
whereas that stuff in that late 80s especially sounded pretty lean in the lower end, the low
Yeah.
mids,
Yeah. Yep.
and lacked some of that sort of fatness that maybe you had in the decade before.
Yeah, that's how I felt a little bit about that. From a production standpoint, like I said, songs are great, craftsmanship, all the musicianship's there. It did feel a little cold in that way, which is
Cold.
where I kind
That's
of
an interesting way to put it.
cold in the production,
Yeah, yeah.
and lacking in that low end that I kind of like and crave a little bit. But like I said, no hate on it. All in all, I enjoyed it. It made me want to listen to more of his stuff. So I'm interested to kind of go in a little deeper and maybe dig in some more. So I wasn't completely turned off by it.
Well, for all the guitar players out there who want to vent your rage on Kevin, his address is 123. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No
I'm
rage.
gonna dox you here on the yeah, send all
Yeah.
your hate mail to my name is Kevin at gmail.com.
Right.
Um
Well, a great transition, like I said, cold and polished 80s into 1977, very
yeah,
unpolished
yeah.
punk
Yeah.
record. We decided to both take down Rocket to Russia from the
Yep.
Ramones. So, um, here's my group, my quick thing on this. I will
Yeah.
tell you the absolute truth. I was I I came to know about the Ramones through movies. And
Okay.
movies, commercials that have long since ended up using their music, was how I kind of found out about them. Of course, I did not listen to them in 1977 because I would be 5. So I wasn't rocking the Ramones shirt at that time. I did find out about them. Honestly, the one memory that comes to mind is a Royal Tenenbaums, the Wes Anderson movie.
Mm.
I believe Sheena is a punk rocker is in that movie, and I think that was the first time I heard it, and I was like, "This is a rad song." Um, it was like a muscled up version of the Beach Boys to me. It has really great pop
Dude,
sensibility,
I'm so
but
glad you
they
said Beach Boys because there's a
but
few
they're
songs on here like that.
yeah, they are very
Yeah.
much like the New York punk version of the Beach Boys, and I say that with the highest compliment to the Ramones. Um, they were it feels to me as I went through this record that they didn't care if if the song fluctuated in tempo. They didn't care if they fell behind the beat a little. It was just like, "Oh, here's a good batch of songs. Let's knock it out." It honestly felt like and again, it did not feel like they labored over it for very long. It's like, "Yeah, we got a batch of 12 songs. We've been playing them live for a few weeks. Let's just go in and cut it." And
Yeah.
they did, and they were very prolific, I think, in their I wanna say probably in their 4 or 5 years, they probably did a record a year. Um,
Or
and I
more.
wanna yeah, I
Because
wanna say
everyone
this
in
is
the
like
band
their
wrote
3rd record.
songs.
Yeah, that which is
Yeah.
also cool because you're getting different members of the band putting up songs that end up being big hits for them.
Yeah.
Um, so I did really I dug it. I mean, I really did. Um, even f I mean, I would say probably my favorite song on the record is "Do You Wanna Dance?" And it's the
Mm.
most sort of commercial kinda I say commercial, but it has
Yeah.
the most sort of pop
Commercial
thing of
now.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, and it feels good. Like, this is a record you can listen to and go, "Yeah, I dig it." and obviously there are places where, okay, yeah, this feels like a pretty stock Ramones song, having listened to them now and know them a bit more. But I try and kind of get to the era of 1977, what was going on, and I'm like, I don't believe anybody's probably doing this. Um, that's not fair. I'm sure there were other bands that were doing things similar to this. Um, but it was just good. It's just good fun, and I'm sure you get in the, it's like made that comparison to the Beach Boys. It's like, yeah, if the Beach Boys were sniffing glue rather than maybe taking acid and mushrooms,
Yeah.
uh, you know, and they lived in the gutters of Alphabet City in New York in the 70s, they
Yeah.
probably would sound like this. So yeah, all in all, I dug it. Cretin Hop is awesome. Sheen is a punk
Yeah.
rocker, of course, awesome. Teenage Lobotomy, I do love how he
Yeah.
says lobotomy. That's just,
Yeah.
uh, Do You Want to Dance? My favorite song on the record for sure. Surfing Bird was really fun, again, in a very Beach
Yeah.
Boys-esque way.
Yeah.
Um, I can see why people felt like it was the best representation of them. Even their slower songs on here were really good. Like I Don't Care was really interesting to me. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I loved it. It's 3-chord punk. It was
Yeah.
great. There's mistakes all over the place. It's not a polished record in the way that you would imagine. It still feels like a band learning how to be a band, but still putting out, just had a great sense of melody and writing, and just said, "Yeah, that sounds good. Let's do it. Let's record it." They didn't overthink it, and I love and appreciate that, to me, that it
Yeah.
has this very immediacy to it, where it's like, "Yeah, okay, you wrote a song 5 minutes ago. You got lyrics? Yeah, I'll just doodle something out real quick. Lobotomy. Okay, cool. Yeah, works for
Yeah.
me. Let's go." Um, so yeah, I'd love to hear what you thought about it.
Yeah. Well, I felt like it was hot garbage. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
I love it.
I try to get someone to rage out. There's got to be some Ramones fans out there that just had a stroke when I said that. No, you know what? The Ramones are a band that I like. That they're another one of those bands that I know a lot of their songs, but in no particular order. It's kind of like it reminds me of growing up before Netflix and streaming. TV shows would be in syndication and they would just be in random order.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it would be like, oh yeah, I used to watch that show, but it's not like it is now where you sit there and you watch from 1 through, I saw season 1 and
Yeah.
now I saw season 2. They're just kind of all over the place. That's sort of how I know Ramones music. And I had so much fun listening to that record today because I listened to it today.
Yeah.
Pearl Jam was yesterday and then I listened to Ramones today.
Yeah.
And so honestly, I felt myself wishing that I was like at a barbecue blasting it over speakers with a bunch of friends.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's
Yeah.
the kind of vibe that it gave me, was just that it was
Absolutely.
such feel-good music. It felt
Yeah.
almost a waste that I was by myself, which sounds kind of sad. And I guess
Yeah.
maybe in a way it is. But I was just going, man, I feel like I want to share this with somebody. Like, this was just such a fun listen. The songs are
Yeah.
short. They have
Yeah.
no business being as good as they are because they're so simple.
Simple, yeah.
They're so simple, but they're so good. And then I'm also listening to it and I'm kind of marveling because I do forget sometimes. I lose perspective in that when I think of punk, I often think about hardcore punk.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's kind of more the direction that I leaned when I was growing up. And so in my mind, punk is very rebellious. And that was like one of the more rebellious things I could hear.
Yeah.
Without having the context of going back another 10 years or whatever from that. So it was really cool because I'm listening to it and I couldn't help but like, it felt like on a slot machine when all the dials are spinning and you're seeing all the different shapes. I'm seeing all the different bands through the years who have been inspired by the Ramones.
Oh yeah.
From the more hardcore stuff to the poppier stuff, through many generations and decades. Even of course more modern pop punk, and I'm going, man, they really had such a profound impact on music. And like you said, I'm sure, I don't have the knowledge, the history down enough to know who else was doing that kind of thing at that time. So at risk of giving them all the credit, they're definitely like the godfathers of a whole sound and a whole lineage that kind of comes from that. And, so it was cool because it felt a bit like a time machine, but also maybe perhaps unlike the Robben Ford record, that one does feel like it stands the test of time better, even in its production. And it's not trying to be anything more than it is. It doesn't even feel like it has aspirations, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean like, it just sounds like dudes getting together, having a blast, and just doing whatever they want to do without even realizing that other people are listening,
Well, yeah, that's when you're hearing them go, like, oh yeah, it just feels fun. And it's kind of what you talked about the other day. It was like when we were looking for something like, this is going to be such a strange tie-in, but it's like Van Halen was feel-good, fun music when it came out. It was just fun, party music. The Ramones feel very much like that. It's a music you want to crank down your windows in your car
100%.
blast it while you're driving down the beach, or wherever you are.
Road trip with your friends.
Just
barbecue in the backyard, any of that kind of thing.
Yeah. And just silly dancing with a reckless abandon that you don't care. I don't care if people like it, don't like it. They couldn't give a shit. And
it's
I
not
just feel like
trying to
that's
be
who they were.
likable. It just is,
Yeah.
I didn't get the feeling that they're going, oh man, should we do this song? Like, do you think people are going to like that? Like,
no.
I didn't get any of that feeling at all.
No.
And also
funny.
Some of the influences were so crazy because I really heard Beach Boys a lot, even in that second song. What is that? Rockaway Beach.
Rockaway Beach.
I'm going, I just didn't expect it. Maybe that's normal for them. And I don't know enough of their catalog to have known that, but that really did catch me by surprise in a really delightful way. Cause I also really like the Beach Boys. I guess who doesn't?
Same.
But
same.
Yeah.
But I think there's a simplistic beauty in it that I think for both of us, having listened to so much different stuff, complex music, complex arrangements, not heavy as in like metal, but dense maybe is a better word, dense music with a lot of layers and productions and all this kind of stuff. We've listened to the gamut of it. And so it just felt like a breath of fresh air to put this on and go, yeah, I don't need anything else than this. This is exactly it. And it is how I feel about, it's how I felt about the Stooges in a way. Like the Stooges in a different way it was a bit more dangerous. Like you don't know what's going to happen if you're at that show. But the music also kind of had this sort of dark, reckless abandon to it. Probably different drugs. Maybe, I don't know.
Probably. Probably.
I don't know. Or pretend to know, but it definitely in the punk world, if you're thinking about bands in the US in the punk world, those two, the Stooges and the Ramones, certainly feel like they're the sort of the godfathers in that space. Very similar to what we talked about with the grunge scene. Like Stooges are out in late 60s, 70s. They're doing their thing. Ramones are coming out early to mid 70s, I guess.
Yeah.
And then of course you have all the other sort of post-punk, Blondie, Talking Heads. I think even the Cars can probably fall into that a little bit. But they were all those two for sure are very interesting. Maybe we'll take down a Stooges record at some point, but yeah, out
that'd
of
be cool.
out of the 3 records, this is my favorite, truthfully.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
You know?
It stomps on no code.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, and it just has a I'm not gonna argue that.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
even for that band, they would probably say, "Oh, yeah, that record is super."
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it
you're probably
definitely
right.
influenced them 100%. Those guys in that band certainly love the Ramones, without a doubt. I know Eddie does and has, mentioned them quite a bit. You see him rocking
Seems hard
Ramones
not to
shirts quite a
like
bit.
it. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's what I mean.
regardless
What's
of
not
what
to
kind of
like about it?
music you like, I think most of the time when people think about punk, they go, "Oh, it's kind of it's going to be abrasive, it's going to be fast."
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Ramones are like very accessible in that sense. I mean, if you don't
Yeah.
mind the odd naughty lyric, otherwise they're pretty easygoing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheeky, but in
Yeah.
a great way. Just in a fun, great way. That's not trying to piss anyone off in the way that some punk music will. That's very much like you mentioned, like
Oh,
a, a
my
Descendants or
camera.
Black Flag or something.
Jeez. Sorry, people. My camera's decided it's not having a good day today.
That's okay. I mean, it's a good time for us to
Yeah.
wrap it up. But I love this. I thought this is a fun episode. I mean, we'll certainly do more of these. And please share what you think. I think I'm sure we've both excited people, pissed some people off, made some
Yeah.
people maybe want to go back and check out these records, maybe made some people not want to listen to those records. But
Yeah.
it's all in just our opinions, and that's all it is. I really I loved getting to bring this up, and it's a great way. We've always shared music, you and I. So why
Yeah.
not share about how we felt? Because sometimes I'll definitely share something with you and you go, "Oh, this is really great." Um,
Yeah.
and other times I'll share stuff and go, "I didn't really get it." And I think bringing that out there and let the public hear sort of our debates and thoughts about stuff is fun. So looking forward to doing
Absolutely.
another one like
And
this.
oh yeah, we'll definitely do this again. And people should nominate stuff for us to listen to also.
Please
So
do. Yeah.
if someone's listening and you're like, please take this down, we'll
Yeah.
put that in the mix as well.
Unlike the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we actually would listen and try our best to take in anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, send
Yeah,
us what you
fair
think.
enough.
If you like some of this, please, or challenge me again. If I need to go back and listen to Chevelle, um, please, please convince me that I should. So it's all good. Anyway, we appreciate you all. Thanks so much for checking us out. You want to send us off, Jay?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as always, if you made it to the end, we appreciate you. Even if you didn't, we appreciate you, but you wouldn't know that we appreciate you because you didn't make it far enough for me to tell you. Yeah, if you want to stay in contact, go to thesonicalchemy.com. You can find all our links from there. Our band is The Silver Echo, so you can find us at thesilverecho.com or at The Silver Echo. Anywhere that little username is valid, which is pretty much everywhere. We appreciate you all, and we'll see you next week.
Woo! Take care.